Let's dive into why God put Adam into a deep sleep when he created Eve. It's a pretty interesting part of the Bible, and it's got some deep meaning to it. So in Genesis 2, verse 21 to 22, it says, "So the Lord God caused the man to fall into a deep sleep. And while he was sleeping, he took one of the man's ribs and then closed up the place with flesh. Then the Lord God made a woman from the rib he had taken out of the man, and he brought her to the man." Now you might wonder, why did God do it this way? Why not just make Eve while Adam was awake? Well, let's break it down. First, that deep sleep was probably about trust. Adam had to trust God completely. Imagine if Adam was awake, watching God take a rib out of him. He might have freaked out. But by being asleep, Adam showed that he was fully relying on God to take care of him, even when he was at his most vulnerable. It's like God saying, "I got this, Adam, you just rest." Another thing is, when God made Eve from Adam's rib, it shows a deep connection between man and woman. Not from his head to rule over him, not from his feet to be trampled by him, but from his side, close to his heart. This means that Eve was meant to be Adam's partner in life, not someone who's below or above him, but right beside him. That deep sleep also shows that God is in control of the process. Adam didn't have to do anything. He didn't need to help God out. He just needed to rest and let God do his thing. It's like when we face situations in life where we have no control, and all we can do is trust God to work things out for us. Now think about this. Eve was God's special gift to Adam. God could have made Eve in front of Adam, like a big show, but instead he chose to make Eve while Adam was asleep, like a surprise gift. When Adam woke up, he saw Eve, and it was like God saying, "Here's someone made just for you." It's a beautiful picture of how God knows our needs even before we do, and he provides for them perfectly. Lastly, let's talk about rest. That deep sleep could symbolize the importance of rest in God's work. Sometimes God does his best work in us when we are at rest, when we're not busy trying to fix everything ourselves. It's a reminder that God can handle things while we rest in him, trusting that he's taking care of everything. So to sum it all up, God putting Adam into a deep sleep was about trust, connection, and showing that he's got everything under control. It's about God working while we rest and the deep bond between man and woman, created to walk side by side. That's pretty much why God let Adam sleep while he created Eve. It's a lesson in trust, love, and letting God do his work in our lives. Simple but powerful. Let's keep rolling with this, diving a bit deeper into the story of Adam and Eve and what it means for us today. We've talked about why God put Adam to sleep, but let's look at what happened after that and what it tells us about relationships, especially marriage. So after God created Eve, Adam wakes up and sees her for the first time. In Genesis 2, verse 23, Adam says, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for she was taken out of man." Adam is basically saying, wow, she's part of me. We're connected on a deep level. This verse shows us something really important about relationships, especially in marriage. It's about unity and togetherness. Adam recognized that Eve was made from him, not just in a physical sense, but in a way that meant they were designed to be together, to support each other, to be one. It's like they were made to fit perfectly together, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually too. Now, this idea of being bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh also speaks to the commitment in a relationship. When you get married, you're not just saying some words or signing a paper. You're becoming one with another person. It's deep. It means you're there for each other through thick and thin, just like how Eve was taken from Adam's side, close to his heart, to stand beside him. Let's think about what that means for us. In a relationship, especially in marriage, there's a need for understanding and empathy. You're not just living for yourself anymore. You're living for the other person too. You care for their needs, their feelings, just like you'd care for your own body. That's what God was setting up here with Adam and Eve, this idea of being one flesh. In Ephesians 5, verse 28 to 29, it says, "In this same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they feed and care for their body, just as Christ does the church." This verse takes that idea from Genesis and runs with it, showing us that love in a marriage should be selfless, caring, and protective. Now let's talk about the garden where this all took place. The Garden of Eden was a perfect place, right? But even in that perfect place, God saw that Adam needed someone. It shows that no matter how good life is, we're designed for relationships. We need connection, someone to walk through life with. Adam wasn't complete on his own, and neither are we. That's a big lesson for us today. Sometimes we think we can do life on our own, that we don't need anyone. But God shows us through Adam and Eve that we're made for connection, for relationships. Whether that's marriage or friendships, we need others in our lives. And here's something cool. After Eve was created, Adam didn't need to look for her. God brought her to him. It's like God was saying, here's the one I made just for you. It's a reminder that God knows what we need and when we need it. Sometimes we try to rush things or make things happen on our own, but God's timing is perfect. He knows when and how to bring the right people into our lives. So if you're waiting on something, whether it's a relationship, a friendship, or even just the right opportunity, trust that God's got it under control. Just like He brought Eve to Adam, He'll bring the right people and opportunities into your life at the right time. To wrap it up, the story of Adam and Eve isn't just a story from the past. It's a blueprint for how we should view relationships today, with love, unity, and trust in God's plan. It shows us that we're not meant to walk through life alone, but with others, caring for them like we care for ourselves. And most importantly, it reminds us to trust in God's perfect timing for everything in our lives. Simple, but that's the truth.